Alright guys, hello, welcome back to another Tim Cain reaction. This time, perfect is the enemy of good. This is very relevant, by the way, especially for making our prototype and doing early pre-production. There's a lot of time that you don't want to spend wasting on making something perfect. That is what production is for. So let's see what Tim has to say about perfect being the enemy of good.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi Tim.
Today I want to talk about a common phrase I hear in the industry called perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah, lay into it.
I think I didn't hear this until about mid 2000s when I was at Carbine. This is a phrase that basically means
Some people misuse this phrase too.
the time you take to make a feature perfect will take away time from making other features good. And it's commonly given as a warning that you shouldn't spend too much time on any one feature if you're not bringing all the other features up to parity with it. Sometimes I've heard this as an excuse to get rid of features early when you can't make them good enough.
I would use it for that.
I think it's a good idea. By the way, I'm going to immediately go off on a tangent. I think it's a good idea if you want to remove a feature to do that as early as possible.
Yeah,
I've met a lot of people,
I think it's
among them
unrelated though.
producers, who think that removing a feature is as easy as just going, okay, that feature's gone now. We delete it. I'll delete it from all future schedules. Oh, good, we're done.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. It's like the designers and programmers are like, dude, no. Like if this is foundational, if this is not something that we can just modularly remove, which I think that sometimes modularity in game development and coding is also one of those things that you can spend a lot of time trying to perfect, or you can just make code that works, right? You generally want to develop code that is modular if you plan to use it in the future in a modular way. But if it's something that you're only developing for this one game and you don't expect to reuse at any point in the future, I don't really see a point in making it modular. It's just wasted time if it costs extra time.
Most games, especially RPGs, the features are like threads that form a
Mm-hmm.
fabric, and you can't just easily delete one. I'll give you an example. Let's say you were making an RPG and you decide to delete crafting. Well, you can't just remove crafting without removing everything that's associated with crafting, including the
Materials or quests or
objects that it would create,
balance.
the items that are dropped to support crafting, like crafting materials or recipes. Now, some of you may go, oh, you can drop them anyway. It's just, the crafting materials are now junk you can sell. Well, now that's items.
What game did that have? Wait. There was a game recently where they removed crafting. Oh, it was Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 actually has all the crafting materials, all the steel bars that you can find, the gems. They were all initially meant to be part of a crafting system, but they removed that, and so they just became junk that you sold for money, which was kind of lame, if you ask me. I mean, I get it. Like gems are one thing. Gems, are valuables, right? But you're dropping like all these different materials that basically just take up a whole bunch of weight, don't really sell for much, and you probably could have just removed them.
That exist only to be sold, not to be used in some other way. Also, what would crafting recipes be if you just left them in the game and you're finding all these recipes for something you can't do?
Yeah,
So
it
you
just
at least
causes
have to delete
frustration and
that.
confusion.
But it also causes a problem with item economy because one of the ways I used to try to balance, I should say, item economy is by having all the sources of items in the game and use that to change up where some of the best items are available throughout the game. So sometimes the best item is at a merchant, sometimes the best
Mm-hmm.
item is at as a quest drop, and sometimes it's crafting. Well, if you delete crafting as a source of items, suddenly you've lost one of your sources of items in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Those rows of best items that are at the levels that they're currently available via crafting now have to be made available somewhere else.
He's right. Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to do that so they're only available at those levels. If you just throw them in a merchant's inventory and a player with a lot of money can buy it early, you've kind of defeated the whole point of how your economy is going to work. But anyway, Um, I wanted to walk through examples of where perfect is the enemy of good affected my games. Um, Outer Worlds is a good example of a game where a lot of features were dropped during the development because we could not get them up to the quality level we wanted. Either they were dropped, but
Yeah, I mean, like you don't want to. You have your pillars, right? You make your pillars when you're developing your game. You decide what is most important and what needs to be have the most amount of time spent on it. And it's not that other things can just be shitty. It's just they do need to be good enough. They don't need to be perfect. So if you know that your game doesn't prioritize fishing, like let's think of like Cult of the Lamb as something I played recently, and the fishing system is serviceable. There's nothing special about it. It doesn't do anything great. It's not as good as some other fishing systems, but the game isn't about fishing. It's just one way to obtain resources, and so they make it good enough. They don't make it perfect. That's a good example of perfect is the enemy of good, and they'd rather spend more time on developing the things that are more important to the pillars of the game and the things that are going to be those hero features that you want to raise up on a pedestal, and let other things just complement the game in a good but not overbearing way. Hey Midron, made to see you can have way too much gold towards mid game in BG3 if you just loot enough. Yeah, if you if you go out of your way to do everything in BG3, the game becomes really easy to kind of beat it.
or they were reduced to fallbacks. I kept a huge list of fallback features for Outer Worlds so
Mm-hmm.
that at any time we could go, oh, we're not going to be able to get the feature to this. Let's replace it with this easier, faster, simpler feature. But some of them were just outright removed because because we couldn't get them to the quality level we wanted or bug free, we just decided to take them out of the game. And an example I like to talk about all the time is Monarch. Monarch was originally designed to be 4 times the size it is in the shipping game.
What
It
was
was
what was Monarch? Which city was that in Outer Worlds? Monarch. I do not remember this. Oh, I kind of remember this. I only played the game once. It's meant to be 4 times the size. I already thought that that map was actually quite significant in size. Interesting. But yeah, it's like you don't want one horrible system just because you thought you wanted it to drag down the rest of the game, right? And sometimes those pain points can hurt somebody's experience a lot more than a game that is just mid. That if there's that one thing that's just so horrible and excruciatingly painful to deal with or to play with, it can really negatively affect somebody's opinion of the game, even when the rest of the game is just okay.
designed as the lawless jungle planet. It
Mm-hmm.
remained lawless, but we lost the jungle for various reasons. But the intention of it was I wanted you to have a big open world to constantly explore, to go out into, to test new weapons, to find monsters, just to wander around.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of respawning. It was just supposed to be a huge, like, open, sandboxy area. When we got removed, not only did we lose those qualities, but we lost a big hit to playtime. We thought Monarch would easily provide an additional 5 to 10 hours of playtime just in terms of exploration and combat. So all that was lost. Uh, Perfect is the enemy of good is often a warning about early optimization. Um, I should have mentioned this in the optimization video I did previously, but one danger is that a lot of programmers like to do is they like to get their code when they finish writing it, they optimize it right then. The idea being, hey, I just wrote this, it's fresh in my mind, I know
Yeah.
ways
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
optimizing it. There's a lot of dangers in doing early optimization, and some of the big ones are remember, optimization is either speeding up the code or reducing its memory footprint. Speeding up code that turns out isn't called very often anyway is a complete waste of time. If you have some code that is barely ever called, it's not going to make a huge impact in your profile of the game if you make it faster. Similarly, I've seen programmers speed up code that never is that slow to begin with. You know, if you use a really bad sorting algorithm, on an array that's never going to be bigger than 5, A, it doesn't really matter what sorting algorithm you use.
Yep.
And B, why are you even sorting it? Why not just walk through it and find the highest number, smallest number, whatever it is you're looking for? But I've seen programmers do that, and that kind of early optimization to quote make it perfect took away time that they could have spent on other things.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I think we run into that a lot with like blueprinting, where it's like, okay, well, this is not the most efficient way to run this, but also it's only going to be called once or twice in the level, and it's only looping through 10 things maximum. Uh, what's the point of making it better when it's not ever going to have a performance impact in the first place? Certain algorithm optimization should never take that much time anyway. Well, maybe so, but I think that there are a lot of cases I have seen. And, I would say, though, that depending on your platform target, I agree that early optimization may be inefficient, but I have also seen some pretty interesting use cases of optimizing even 1 or 2 megabytes that can have a pretty dramatic impact depending on your platform that you're trying to hit. Like for say, the Switch, for instance, right? Um, I don't remember what game it was. I think it was Warframe. I watched a lot of the dev streams of one of the guys that did do optimization to code, and saving over the course of the entire game's development, 2 megabytes here, 5 megabytes of RAM here, it really did make that game run really well at on certain platforms and targets. Consoles should be gone. I don't know about that, but all I can say is I think there are times I agree though that spending time on something that just doesn't matter. It's kind of like when I mentioned the modularity. Like if this code does not it's not intended to be used in anywhere else, why waste time making it modular just to say that our game is entirely modular? Don't waste time. Like your time is better spent somewhere else, making a new system or optimizing something or making some documentation for future use on those things that we do want to use. I think that all efficiency does matter, and it's one of the reasons why, like for prototyping especially, I'm not going to make something better. I'm not going to waste my time on it when I could be making systems. So it's kind of that constant mindset that you need to have of what is most important to this game. Well, for Colden Chronicles, it's our dialogue, it's our variety of open world events, and it's the alchemy itself. Everything else can just be good enough to be complementary to that system, especially in a prototype.
Another example is reducing the memory footprint
Mm-hmm.
of something. And I talked about places where people kept a whole array around. They'd create an array just to grab one small thing off the just to sort it, grab something off it, and then throw the array away. But if you reduce the memory footprint of something that's created to make a calculation and then gives that memory back for garbage collection, you don't really need to worry about that memory.
Yeah.
If a function's called and to do its work, it needs to look at several things and it creates an array of those things, does its calculations by multiple walks through that array, and then throws the array into the garbage collection heap, that's fine. I've seen people try to optimize that by saying, well, I'll grab an array that I keep globally so I don't have to keep reallocating it. Especially if this is something that's not called that frequently, if it doesn't grab that much memory, if it goes right back into the garbage collection heap and you have a really good garbage collection uh, algorithm that gives you back memory chunks that you need to reuse, don't worry about it.
Well, I think too, it's like it just does it's at some points in the game it doesn't matter if you know that the most amount of RAM your game is going to use is, let's say, 8 gigabytes, then this one level where you jump from 4 to 4.2 because of some heavy algorithms doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. It's like, yes, you should optimize that maximum, but if at other places you have some unoptimized code that just isn't really going to cause a problem, again, just skip it, just move on. If it's not creating some issues, some stuttering or whatever in a place where you don't want that, then don't worry about it. An old video, Tim's audio is kind of off. Yeah, it is an old video. Just don't suck at writing code. Stop writing bugs. Well, these are less bugs and they're more just, lack of optimization, right? And I think that those are two different things in this case.
Perfect example of optimizing too early. The other example I wanted to give, though, of an example of something I never got around to doing because of an optimization. And I've talked about this in a few places, but we spent a lot of time in original Fallout making sure that the walking animations didn't float. And by that I mean when they move, the
It wasn't
footprints,
like sliding.
their footsteps connect to the ground, and then when
Yeah,
they
yeah,
move
yeah.
to the next footstep, the foot that's on the ground doesn't slide. In a lot of isometric games, you see them slide as they walk. We didn't want that in Fallout. It took a lot of time and effort from both me and the artists to make sure that happened. It had to be rendered in a very particular way with a very particular focal distance and lens in we're using Maya or Alias, um, particular algorithms in the game, and how the art was cut out, put in the game,
Yeah.
and then the animation was done. It took a lot of time to put in something that a lot of people don't even ever notice. So what didn't get done? Well, I'm sure if you played Fallout, you notice that because they only walk from hex to hex, when you go vertically, they walk in a very jerky way like this.
Yeah, I have seen that.
One back burner thing I had that I wanted to do that I never got to do was when you clicked on the destination, if it determined that there was a path there along the hexes, it would just walk you in a straight line there. So it looked smooth. It would look better, even though maybe the angle, because we only had so many sprite rotations, wouldn't be perfect. They would just walk there, but they'd be walking partially out of hexes that hadn't been checked for blocking, which meant they might clip slightly through a doorway or clip slightly through scenery. But it probably would have looked better because they wouldn't have done that jerky walk up and down, and especially on things where most of the walk was along the hex path anyway, it would have looked great. You wouldn't have had any of those issues, and it would have looked much better. You
Yeah,
have
and I think that this is kind of relevant to what we were talking about the other day with Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? With the bamboo. You guys remember that one? Um, it's just one of those cases where if you spend your time perfecting something that doesn't matter too much, and your time could be better spent on something that will probably have more of an impact on the player's experience or immersion or something, it would be better to do that. So, yeah, it's just I don't know. It can all be boiled down into try to optimize the things that are going to matter the most to the end user. It's also kind of a philosophy of the zero bug policy, right? Which the name is a bit confusing. It's not what it sounds like. It just means that there are some bugs that you'll look at in the backlog and you'll say fixing this is a waste of time because the value that it provides, that fixing this bug provides to the player, is just it's so negligible compared to more important things. So just delete the bug report. Just put it as not fixed, throw it into some archive so that QA at least knows not to report it again, and move on. It's one of those philosophies that I think if you explained it to players, they'd probably get very mad that you're not fixing bugs. But the reality is that there are plenty of games with a lot of bugs that people love and consider top notch simply because those bugs they don't really have an impact on the player's enjoyability of the game. So, prioritize what provides the most value to the player when it comes to fixing a bug or implementing a feature or optimizing, some code. Leave everything by the wayside and you'll make better games. One bug that's a feature. Ask the players how they feel about that one.
never had time to do that. If you played Temple of Elemental Evil, its animations look way better. Its walking animations look way better because when you click somewhere, we take you right there, and because it's a 3D character, we have no trouble rotating them to directly where you
Mm-hmm.
want to go. And it kind of works that way in that it determines the path is free in that direction, but then walks you as smoothly as possible in angles to get you where you're going. Looks way better. Kind of wish I had done something similar in the original Fallout. Didn't have time. Why? Because I spent so much time getting those footsteps working, which my guess is 95% of the people playing didn't notice and didn't care. And I base that on the fact that so many other isometric games that were contemporaneous with us, like Diablo. Didn't bother, no one noticed, no one cared.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the ideal scenario is you have enough time and money to do both. But there's never that ideal scenario in game dev in 99% of cases, right? There's always somebody that needs this game released at a certain point, and therefore you do need to make those decisions of what to prioritize. Um, and that's just the way it is. I agree. I think that as cool as it is that those footsteps land in the right place, it clearly just wasted too much time. And yeah, the decision could have been made at a better point. Hey, Miranda, makes sense. It's extra important because a lot of time fixing bugs is a lot of money. It really is, yeah. Just fixing the most egregious bugs is adequate, even though they prefer to have no bugs. I mean, you can always fix the smaller bugs too after release, right? So it's like if this bug provides, if fixing this bug provides this much value and this bug provides this much value, fix this one, save this one for a later patch, and get the things done that are more important or more immersion helping, providing, you know what I mean? Yeah, the important ones, yeah. For finding complex words to describe, I think that just fix the bugs that are the more annoying ones.
So I'm basically throwing you this out as a cautionary tale of, and this is mainly to programmers, but it can be for artists and designers as well. If you spend so much time trying to get one thing perfect, you're going to lose time in everything else. You would rather have a game of everything being good and consistently good than a couple perfect things, a few good things, and then some bad things. Trust me, I've made way too many games that are packed full of features. I'm looking at you, Arcanum, that never got polished enough. They're not. I wouldn't even call them good because we were worried about making too many other things perfect. So just keep that in mind.
I've been here.
If you're doing game
Yep.
development, that perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We face that a lot too with individuals who may tell me to make my grass better, for instance. If you know, you know. Especially in a prototype, it's good enough. It's good enough, and it doesn't provide value to spend days and days on fixing grass. When, as we proved today, I can spend a day making, our season beautiful corner, or we can work on like corruption like tomorrow, or I can make fishing or farming in a week each like we did. I'd rather spend time in making those and trying to make those feel a bit better and fit within the rest of the worlds and the systems, than spend a day making grass. Not, I don't even know, swords. No swords, no swords in our game. No, but that's I think Tim is very much right, and this does apply to I think every single part of game development. It is about being efficient and knowing where that value lies. And that is not just a creative director's job, but that is a producer's job and a lead's job. And it's one of those things that I think comes with a lot of experience in game development where you'll just know that, okay, this function is only used once. We're not going to use it in future games. It's not the most optimized, and that's fine. Doesn't matter. You're making games so your words hit that much harder. You've got limited time, you really do. And I mean, the ideal is that well, think of it this way. How many people do we know, or stories that we know, where these individuals have spent 10 years making their indie game and they release it and it's not a bad game? But I also don't think that it was worth spending 10 years on when you could have made two pretty damn decent games in 5 years. I don't know. I mean, indie development is certainly special, right? But when it comes to AAA or AA, or you have a publisher that you're working for, in most cases, these companies and these people have investors, and those investors expect money by a certain period of time, profit. And so you have no leeway. Maybe you can buy yourself another, 2 quarters, 4 quarters of a year, whatever, but that's the maximum. And eventually that game is going to have to ship. Now, I think that companies could probably communicate better when their games are going to be shit, but of course, what company with shareholders and investors is going to want to do that? But we all know it. We all know that when a game finishes unreleased, that there was somebody higher up or high enough up that said, we just need to get it out because we have no time left. And everything else can be fixed if we get enough money from selling this game. I'll do some trash stuff, but a lot of it. I mean, I guess we're all in the same boat with that one, right? Yeah, I mean, but Tim, I think he said everything he needed to say. This was very, very correct, and I agree with him completely. Go give Tim a like and a subscribe here, and buy membership to his channel too. You can get access to all of his videos much earlier than usual. So yeah, perfect is the enemy of good. Just make something good. Focus on your pillars. Focus on those things in your game that are going to be the most important for the player's value and for the core gameplay loop, and cut the things that really don't provide much value or maybe even contradict some of the gameplay loop that you're trying to create, right? Your game, your arcade game doesn't need to have progression, does it? Does it really need to have progression? Or can it just exist as a fun gameplay, as a fun arcade game with a linear set of levels? Think about it. Alright guys, if you're watching YouTube, thank you for watching that one, and I will catch you on the next reaction. Bye YouTube.